All right, everybody, welcome to part 3 of Tools of the Trade. In this section, we'll take a look at some sharpening tools, some tools that we use in the lawn care industry, and then some very specialized tools that we can use in the landscaping industry. All right, let's talk about some sharpening equipment. This is a sharpening stone that you could use for hedge shears. This is a mill bastard file. This kind of file can be used for sharpening hedge shears. It could also be used for sharpening bypass pruners and for sharpening spades and other types of shovels or hoes or larger hand tools like that. This is a Dremel rotary tool. This is a great tool. It has lots of different heads that you can insert into the rotary tool, lots of different accessories, so you can get sharpening stones, you can get grinding stones, you can get little sanding wheels to put on there, so you can do a lot of good sharpening with a rotary tool such as this. Okay, this is an angle grinder. So an angle grinder is something that I would not use on pruning equipment. An angle grinder would be suitable for your larger hand tools like your spades and shovels and hoes and things like that, but I don't think you would have the control that you would want if you were trying to sharpen a piece of pruning equipment. Same with the bench grinder. So the bench grinder probably isn't the best tool for most of your pruning equipment. Again, this particular tool would be more suitable to the larger hand tools like the shovels and hoes that we talked about earlier. Lawn care. So this is what most of us would mow our lawns with. This is a rotary lawn mower. So this is the kind of mower that people would use on most of our warm season turf grasses down here in Texas. Okay, these are two examples of reel mowers. So this type of mower is probably better for fine textured grasses. Bent grass, for example, which you would find on the greens at a lot of different golf courses, would be best mowed with this kind of mower. So the reel mower that you see pictured on the right is one that you have to push, and the reel mower that you see pictured on the left is one that is self-propelled. Okay, string trimmers. String trimmers are great tools for kind of reaching those areas that you cannot trim or mow with your lawnmower. So we're talking about up against a fence, along the edge of your planting beds, around tree rings, for example. You're going to need a string trimmer to kind of finish off those areas. Okay, this tool is a self-propelled core aerator. So this tool is used to remove little plugs of soil from your lawn. And those little plugs or cores are deposited on your grass. Basically, the idea is you're punching holes into your lawn, and you're allowing for the percolation of both water and air and nutrients into your lawn, and that's going to be good for your grass. So this is something you might consider doing every spring around this time of the year. A lot of people don't like the way the cores look when they're left on the grass, so sometimes landscaping companies will rake those up and remove those from the job site. Actually, you don't have to rake them up over time. They're just going to dissolve, and that soil is going to work its way back into the holes. One thing that some people do with a core aerator is you can core aerate in two directions. So you do your lawn in one direction and then go do it in the other direction, 90 degrees to the first direction. And then you can do something called top dressing after you've done the aeration. Top dressing is where you bring in a better soil than the one that you presently have in your yard. And you take that soil and you spread it out over your grass and kind of work it in with a rake. So what you're doing is you're filling the holes that were made by the core aerator with a higher quality soil than the one you originally had in your lawn. And over time, if you did this every year for several years in a row, you would be literally replacing the top 4 to 5 inches of soil in your yard. So if you have a very heavy clay that's not very well drained and tends to hold a lot of water, top dressing might be a good way to kind of work in a better soil. Okay, this is a power rake. This type of tool is used for dethatching. So thatch builds up in grasses, especially those grasses that form a lot of rhizomes and or stolons. That type of material can kind of build up over time and actually inhibit the percolation of water and air into your soil. So sometimes it's a good idea to do dethatching. Generally, it's not something that needs to be done on an annual basis, maybe every 3 or 4 years. And this machine is a power rake, so it's going to kind of break up that thatch layer and it's going to deposit all that stuff on top of your lawn. So after you do the power raking, you're going to need to come by with a hand rake to rake up all the thatch that was removed by the machine and then remove that from the job site. All right, this is a sod cutter. So this tool could be the first step in planting bed preparation. If you're making a large planting bed, it's probably recommended to lay out the bed. I tend to use an old piece of garden hose that I lay on top of my lawn in the shape that I want the bed to be. And then I come by with a can of spray paint and I spray right along that hose to mark the border or edge of my bed. And then I would use a sod cutter to remove the sod from that bed area. Now, if you don't need the sod anyplace else, then the sod is going to have to be discarded and removed from the job site. But oftentimes in our lawns, there are always places that maybe the grass tends to be a little bit thin. So before you throw the sod away, you might think about using a spade to kind of cut out some of that poor lawn area and replace it with some of the sod you just cut when you made your bed. Okay, this tool is called a slit seeder, and this tool is really only going to work on lawns in areas where the lawns have been originally seeded in. So for example, a lot of our warm season turf grasses that we have in Texas, they really don't come from seed that well. They have to be propagated vegetatively. So we either buy sod or we buy plugs or something like that to get lawns established. We don't usually seed lawns in Texas. So there are some turf grasses that will propagate from seed. And if you have a lawn that is one of those types of grasses, then a slit seeder is a way to kind of provide additional seed. It's not technically overseeding. It's basically a machine that will cut small little furrows into your lawn and then deposit the seeds into those furrows, just like a corn planter would deposit the corn seeds into the furrow made by the corn planter. So this puts the seed right into the soil so you get good seed to soil contact, and it'll just help kind of reinvigorate maybe some of those places in your yard where the grass has thinned out a little bit. You see a little pattern kind of in the lower right hand picture. So that is the recommended use patterns. So when you use a slit seeder, you want to use it in two different directions, as kind of represented in that pattern you see at the bottom right hand portion of the screen. Okay, tools for edging and bed preparation. So this is a lawn edger. So this is the tool that you would use between the sidewalk or the driveway and your lawn. So after you mow, if you want to make a real nice clean edge between, the hard surface of the sidewalk and your lawn, this is the tool that you would use. So it has a blade that's going to spin very quickly, and that blade is going to cut a very kind of thin line right up against the concrete and create a real nice edge for you. Okay, this machine is a bed edger. So this particular machine is to either make an edge on a newly created planting bed or touch up an edge on an existing planting bed. The particular model that's shown in this picture is one that you have to pull. So you don't push it, you pull it when you use it. And it has different blades that you can put on to kind of either do bed edging, or you can switch to a different blade that would allow you to do trenching. So you can kind of also use it as a trenching machine besides a bed edging machine. All right, here's a video. I'll put this or create a separate link for this in the folder if you want to watch it. All right, so we're going to talk about some rototillers now. So this is a kind of a small Stihl Yard Boss rototiller. So this is the kind of rototiller that might be good if you have a very small planting bed that you want to prepare, or if you want to do a little bit of cultivation around some plants, you might consider using this. If you had a bare spot in your lawn and you had already checked that there are no sprinkler heads nearby, you could use a tool like this to kind of till up that bare spot so it can either be reseeded or resodded. So this is a very small portable rototiller. Okay, this is not a small rototiller. This is actually an Italian-made BCS rototiller. So these are large self-propelled rototillers that would be more suitable to large gardens or tilling up a very large planting bed. They do a great job. All right, let's talk a little bit about tools that we would use to apply nutrients and chemicals primarily to our lawns. All right, we're going to talk about spreaders. There are really two different kinds of spreaders that we can use. One is called the rotary spreader. The other is called a drop spreader. So what you see pictured here is a rotary spreader. Spreaders help you apply granular fertilizer or herbicide to your lawn. They can also spread grass seed. The main difference between drop spreaders and broadcast spreaders is the precision of application. As their name suggests, broadcast spreaders broadcast fertilizer or weed killer out to the front and sides of the spreader in an arc, covering a large area at once. Drop spreaders, however, drop the lawn product between the wheels so that you have control over exactly where the product falls for a more precise application. So basically the difference between broadcast and drop spreaders is the drop spreader is more targeted, but the broadcast spreader is much faster. Okay, so here is a picture of a drop spreader. So much more targeted application with a drop spreader. Okay, this is a backpack sprayer. This is a Solo brand. Solo is a West German company. They make a great backpack sprayer. I own one of these and I've had it for 30 years and it's still working. You can buy parts for these online, so if a part goes bad, you can just replace it yourself. So I apply all different kinds of chemicals with mine. The danger in doing that is that you have to make sure that you do a really good job of cleaning your tank out. So for example, if you're spraying Roundup one day and then you're switching to an insecticide the next day, you want to make sure that you do a thorough job of cleaning your backpack sprayer out and running water through the system to make sure you get rid of all that Roundup before you go mixing an insecticide to spray on plants. So keep them clean. But this is a great sprayer for small yards. You can use this for spraying a small lawn, suitable for spraying shrubs, small trees. It's a great product. Okay, this is a soil auger with a gasoline power head. So this auger is used to make small holes. So what would you need small holes for? Well, there's one method of fertilizing trees and shrubs called the drill hole method. And using this method, you place small holes in a grid pattern around the shrub or tree that you're going to fertilize, and then you actually spoon the fertilizer into the holes and then fill the holes back up with soil. So why would you want to do something like this? Well, the reason you would do it is because it brings the nitrogen much closer to the root system, and it gets the fertilizer in a place where the roots can readily absorb it. If you do a surface application with a broadcast spreader, then you have to rely on rainfall to dissolve that fertilizer, and then water has to slowly carry that fertilizer through the soil profile until it reaches the root system of your tree or shrub. So with the drill hole method of fertilization, you're able to kind of target the fertilizer and put it right where it's needed so the plant can readily absorb it. All right, so this is an example of a tree injection system. So most of us are probably not going to go out and buy one of these, although we could. This would be a great business for somebody. If you could get a license, get licensed in the application of pesticides in the state of Texas, you could use a system like this for hire and could probably earn a pretty good living, because there's all sorts of tree diseases that need to be treated using a system like this. So this is a way to deliver fungicides and insecticides to trees. Can also be a way to deliver targeted micronutrients to a tree. Let's say, for example, a tree has an iron deficiency. You can buy chelated iron solutions that can be injected into trees. So you can use it for a variety of things. And I originally had someone scheduled to come in and demonstrate this. Unfortunately, with the situation being as it is, I don't think that particular guest speaker is going to be able to come out and do this for us. But anyway, this is an example of a tree injection system. All right, let's talk about one of my favorite tools. Again, probably not something that you're going to run out and buy, but an air spade is a great tool. The only problem with an air spade is you need a large compressor that can deliver a lot of air, and we're talking about a large volume of air in terms of cubic feet per minute. That's what you need. So you need a compressor, and then you would have to buy or rent the air spade kit. So basically what an air spade is, it's a wand with a nozzle on the end of it, and the compressor creates compressed air that rushes out of this nozzle at a very, very high velocity. So these nozzles operate at a pressure of about 90 pounds per square inch. So the pressure is pretty high, but it's really the volume and the velocity of air that do the work. So with an air spade, you can excavate, you can dig, you can make holes. And as you can see in the picture, you get kind of messy when you use an air spade, so you do need to wear protective clothing, something that's going to just cover up the clothes that you have on, a mask to protect your nose and mouth, and then definitely a face shield because you're going to be blowing up, clods of soil when you use an air spade. So in the next couple of slides, I want to show you some examples of how air spades can be used in landscaping. So this is an example of radial trenching that was done with an air spade. So for example, if you have a tree and maybe the tree is suffering because it was planted in compacted soil that doesn't drain very well, and you want to improve the soil for that tree, you can use an air spade to make a series of radial trenches that radiate out from the trunk of the tree, as you see in the picture. And you can use this without really having to worry about cutting through utilities or pipes or anything like that, because an air spade will not cut through wire. It's not going to cut through plastic. So you don't even have to locate utilities. All you do is start using the air spade, and you can use it to create a trench or a hole or whatever you need. So we've made several trenches around this tree, and then the idea is, it's kind of like the same idea that we talked about earlier when you top dress a lawn. So top dressing is where you're putting a better soil on top of the lawn, and you're kind of letting that better soil work its way into the holes that were made by the core aerator. So here with radial trenching, you created a trench, and you're going to fill the trenches back in with a better mixture of soil, a soil that's better drained and better aerated than the one the tree is presently growing in. And this will over time greatly benefit trees. We did some of this at Kirkwood Community College in Iowa. We actually owned an air spade, our department did, and then I rented a compressor, and we had several trees that were planted around our building that were just not doing very well. Well, I'm happy to say that after doing radial trenching around these trees, they're doing much, much better. So it does work, and a air spade is really the best way to make these trenches. If you were to use a trenching machine, you would just be cutting these roots, which is not good for the tree. So the air spade will not cut or damage roots. Mini skid steer loaders. All right, so you have to love a machine like this. So a machine like this is basically a skid steer loader. At least it's configured as a loader in this particular picture, but there are different implements that you can put on the machine besides the bucket that you see pictured here. You can also put on augers if you wanted to make holes. You can put on buckets, you can put on scraper blades. There's a whole variety of tools that you could put on a mini skid steer. It is a track machine, so you have to be a little bit careful if you're in your own yard or a client's yard with a machine like this. If you turn a little bit too sharply, those tracks are going to tear or rip the grass. So you have to be a little bit careful when you turn and kind of turn in a wide arc. But the machines are designed to go through smaller gates like we typically have here in Texas. So you can get this machine into the backyard, and it's just a great way to, move soil from the street back to the yard or haul things out of the yard that you no longer need. All right, this is Toro's version of the mini skid steer. It's called the Dingo, and you can see that there's 35 plus attachments for this machine. So you can do a whole lot of work with a machine like this. And I might add that you can rent these. So, if you're doing something around the house and it's going to involve a significant amount of labor, you could probably save some time by renting a machine like this. Okay, this is Bobcat's version of the mini skid steer. You just finished Tools of the Trade, Part 3 of 3.